This is Mike Corey from ESPN, and you're listening to the Sports Objective Podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down in my soul, and I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode, from the sidelines down to the post. Put it down like not even close. All out to my last whistle blow. From the flag with the soul and crossbones. Everybody stand up, get your hands.
Welcome into the Sports Objective here under the lights. Another great night. And with us right now, ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorites, Kyle from the Branch Barber. How are you, man? It's been a while.
What's going on, Dave? The prodigal son has returned. Feels like I haven't done a podcast in forever, and I guess it's because I haven't. But good to be back. And baseball, thank God. You know, I'm not the hugest basketball guy, so after football, it's kind of a dead period for me until baseball. But thank God, baseball season starts tomorrow.
Well, by the way, Bubba Rosenbaum, we have our overtime coming up after this show. Very excited as the Pirates get another road win in Tampa tonight. A very big win for Joe Dooley as they're now one game over 500, 13-12 on the year. So make sure that you join us for overtime, and a real happy overtime. Good to see that win for Joe Dooley. And Bubba, we're with us right now. First, though, we have baseball season coming up, and one of our favorite guests is back on with us.
Absolutely, Dave. Opening day eve, if you will. And, Pirates get underway tomorrow against the Bryant Bulldogs, and very excited to welcome Coach O back. Coach O, how are you?
Oh, really good, and really glad to join you guys. And like you, I'm looking forward to baseball season.
Coach, this is obviously I sent a picture to the guys today in our group chat 3 years ago. We were the opening series. It was so cold, but even when it's cold, we're so excited with baseball season. Out of the gate, I wanted to ask you, what was your mindset when you knowing that the opening series of a season's coming up? What are you thinking about as a coach? Those of us that are baseball fans, we're not at obviously your level D1 baseball coaching. What's it like knowing that you're the night before the first series, the first game?
Well, obviously, anyone's very anxious. I think we all in all sports, in the realm of all sporting activity, we want to play someone other than ourselves. So we all look forward to that. But as far as what it's like, I think baseball is a sport, and all I'm sure are the same way. But baseball is one where the lineup that you'll see 3 weeks from now is not the one we'll see tomorrow. The lineup that we see 3 months from now may not even resemble the one we see tomorrow. So that's in the back of a head coach's mind. Do you have the right people in the right places at this particular time? And when I use the word anxious, certainly there's some anxiety involved in the decisions that have been made to that point. And that's what Cliff Godwin's going through tonight.
Talking about, making decisions and anxiety and the lineup, et cetera. Obviously, with the news of Carson Wisenhunt being suspended, at least for this series, and we'll find out if that's going to be longer, later on. But what kind of obvious? It's an obvious question, but what kind of wrench does that throw in coach's game plan? And obviously, that changes the rotation when your ace can't go. So it's an opportunity to see some other guys. It's an opportunity to see who's going to step up, but obviously, not something you wanted to have to deal with.
No, but actually, the thought, Kyle, that's going through the minds of the coaches right now is not really despair, so to speak, or the fact that you've lost your number one temporarily, and yet it could be a huge detriment if it's very long term. But that's not what's going through the coach's mind. What he's actually thinking about now is what kind of effect will it have on the remainder of the team? Do the position players now see it as a chance for them to step forward and be the bell cow rather than one guy on the hill? Or is it also a chance for the other pitchers to make one step up? If you were 4, now 3. If you were 3, now 2. Or do they look at it the other way? Like, do you hang your head and say, oh my, how many losses will this cost us? And with that mentality, of course, we all know what can happen. That's what a coach is thinking. what can happen in a season if that's the mentality. But again, if the players who are trained very well by Cliff Godwin, and these ECU players, I think we all know, will kind of seize this opportunity to even make the club better, especially when Carson returns. Then if that's the case, then, hey, who knows? This just might be a blessing, even though never losing your best pitcher is a blessing.
And Coach, having it the early in the season, not to try to spin it and being a homer because I love East Carolina, but I mean, when you think about it, we were talking about pre-show in the green room. It's not like he was hurt. It's a matter of a team violation. We'll have to find out what that all plays out. We're being fair to obviously the program, but when it comes to this particular situation, you were talking about the baseball with the pitchers. This is one of I always brag about our pitching staff, but it looks like every year we get deeper and deeper. We've got a lot of guys, and I'm not saying not having Whisenhunt is not a big deal, but what I'm saying is it's like the old saying, Coach, next man up.
Oh, yeah. And you look at the rotation now for this weekend with Whisenhunt out. You look at the rotation, and 2 of the 3 guys have not had a start at ECU. So you're speaking of the depth, Dave. You look at guys that are penciled into the bullpen right now. They have a pretty good number of innings and a pretty good number of outings at ECU. And then let's not forget that Agnos and Giles can set up if need be, and those guys have been on the hill quite a number of times as well. So yeah, there are pitchers up and down the rotation, and I don't mean the starting rotation, but there are pitchers on this lineup that have appearances, high number, and that only bodes well for the experience of what this club can accomplish.
And coaches, we look ahead to the first opponent, Bryant. I think they're picked to win the Northeastern Conference. Pretty good baseball program. What do you know about Bryant?
Well, very good Northeastern school. Now, we all know that Stony Brook made it to Omaha just a few years ago, and that was a very quality club. By the way, the year they went to Omaha, we're talking about Stony Brook now. The Pirates swept them in Greenville that year in a 3-game series. But Bryant is a team much like that. It's perennially good. It's coming off a 27-14 year, and it's a team that rarely has a losing season, if at all. In the last 10, 12, 14 years, been real good clubs. Now, let's remember the year that ECU went to Texas Tech to play in the Super Regional, one of the opponents in the regional at Virginia was Bryant. That was the first round game. Pirates winning that game easily, but at the same time, 44-win season that year by Bryant. And that's not been unusual for them to win 40 games. They've done that several times, and tough to do in that part of the country, in the cold part of the country. So it's a club that has established, I'll say, in modern times, a little bit of a tradition, especially in the area in which they play. And they'll come in with some with a club that feels like they can make some noise if they can beat the Pirates or if they can win the series. Now, one thing about Bryant, although they do return a couple of really good position players, they lost 4 their top 4 pitchers, and that all due to graduation or the draft. And in so losing those 4, the bulk of their innings, unlike ECU, is gone.
Wow.
Talk about, though, even though losing the starting pitch, and you mentioned in recent years a winning tradition, a 44-win season a few years back, 27 wins last year. So one thing when teams come into Clark LeClaire sometimes, that are from smaller conferences or lesser-known teams, not name brands, so to speak, sometimes I think schools can come in and teams can come in and be intimidated. When you have a school like Bryant who's been to regionals, who's had some success, you don't really have that intimidation factor. They're not going to come in being intimidated. You mentioned they're going to come in thinking they can prove something and kind of build their resume. They're trying to get to a regional.
Yeah, very good point. The fact that they've been to postseason play is what will prevent them from, or they'll not be in awe by any means coming in tomorrow and through the weekend. And you're right. They will come in here to win, because a series win or even a win is a feather in their cap for what they're trying to do and trying to accomplish. But going back to your comment about postseason play, I think it was just a couple of years before the year that we played them at Virginia. They opened a regional by beating Arkansas. They were the 4 seed. Arkansas was the 1. So they're no stranger, the entire program. And I know that was a few years ago, but they're no stranger to winning big games. And their schedule is dotted with just that, so that they have the opportunity to bring something back home that they can build around. You're exactly right, Kyle. They'll not come in here intimidated whatsoever. And there are clubs that do. Yeah. Because they know about the history, the tradition of ECU, but at the same time, they know how year in and year out, Pirates are a top 20, even some would call us a top 15 club on what we've done most recently. And not this team. No, they're no stranger to winning in big games.
And Coach, with that very factor of how a club reacts to being the hunted. We at East Carolina a lot of times are the hunters, but with the baseball program going back to you and before you, that's been so good for many, many years, that people know that we are good. And you always hear about that with the good teams. The other team is going to give you their best shot, like night in and night out. And I was talking to my son on Tuesday night. You can't take teams for granted. Just because you have more talent doesn't mean that you're going to win the game.
Yeah. And the last few years, Dave, just our super regional appearances, national television, only 16 teams remaining to play for a national title at that particular point. Not only are your thoughts shared by all ECU fans and supporters, but more importantly, that's known across the country too.
Coach, you mentioned national television, and that makes me think that I was looking over our schedule the other day, and I noticed this year that every home game is going to be on ESPN Plus. Do you know how many of those games, if any, or all? Last year, a couple times, the radio broadcast was dubbed over for the ESPN Plus coverage. You know if that's going to be done any this year, or will there be separate announcers for the ESPN Plus games?
There will be. I know this is. I'm not giving you a concrete answer, but Bubba, it will be most of the time with its separate announcers, but it will be fed into the radio network on what's called a pass-through. I'm going to say maybe 10-15% of the games. Yes, the home games I'm referring to, and that's just a rough estimate. But it will be fed through the radio network some.
Okay, and as we're talking about the radio network, we got Scooter coming aboard to take over play-by-play duties from Corey. Have you had a chance to do some preparation work with him, and what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, we've been doing some preparation probably the last 2 to 3 weeks, but fine young man. He does a lot of PA announcing. He does a lot of things off of the network, so to speak. But he's passionate ECU fan, and he's a guy that bleeds purple and gold. So that's a big part of it as well. By the way, I said Bubba, but Kyle, I see you were the one that answered the question. I apology for that. But he, yes, I'm really looking forward to working with him. I think we'll do a great. I think he'll do a great job at play-by-play announcing, and the young guy with a great future.
Coach, going back to our rotation, given the Carson Whisenhunt situation, Garrett Saylor getting the ball, Garrett at times, in long relief or even in midweek starts, he's been tremendous. He's been very dominant at times, but he's just lacked that consistency that he's been looking for. But Coach Godwin said in the fall that he was our best starting arm. So just talk about his development, everything you've seen and heard out of Garrett. And then also the rest of the rotation with obviously Jake Kuchmaner looking to return to his previous form. A little bit of a rough season in 2021, but we know he's capable and made some adjustments in the fall with Coach Knight. And then obviously on Sunday, you have Jake Hunter, the very talented freshman.
Yeah. And starting with Saylor, you're right. He's had some very good outings, Bubba. What stands out to me is the 40 strikeouts in only 35 innings. So he surpassed the 1-for-1 call that a lot of people focus on in stats. And that tells us there he has good arm strength, and he's going to have a lot of strikeouts. But he pitched in some big times for us last year. I know in the conference tournament he had a really good outing. Toward the end of the year, especially the last half of the year, he came in relief and had stellar performances from as you mentioned, short to long relief in the 3 to 5 inning range. So Garrett is very capable, and Coach Godwin must really like him to move him to the one slot or to put him in that position. As far as Cooch, we all know what he did just 3 years ago. And much has been said about his performances, perfect game, the almost no-hitter. But Cooch is still a guy that, and he's not a finesse pitcher, not by any means. His velocity has come up a little each and every year that he's been here, but he's a spot guy. I mean, he's going to hit his spots on the plate, and he's going to stay ahead of hitters. When that doesn't happen, he can get into a little trouble. Obviously, that happened more last year than we wanted to see. But when he goes back to the things that he does and does best, one of those things, by the way, is working quickly. He seemed to slow his pace down just a little last year, and now picking that back up might be something that finds his zone again. And again, he's been there. He's done that. And having done that, what's the old saying that scouts like to use? It's there. We've seen it. So we know it can be there again. And then Jake Hunter, the freshman, as you said, had a really good outing last Sunday in a scrimmage, but one of the better arms on the club. And for a freshman, that speaks very highly for him. Those are the three guys that will start this weekend. But let's not forget Nick Logish, who had an outstanding summer in the Coastal Plains League last year, and he was pretty much predicted to be one of the top three guys. So, playing a Campbell club next Tuesday that is really, really expected to be good. A start for him may be apropos for what he's accomplished in the most recent past. Then you have some middle guys, freshman from last year, Josh Groves, really threw really well at times. Has a body similar to Gavin Williams. Pitches downhill, very tall, lanky, and I think we'll hear from him as well. So these are all, except for Cooch Maynard, these are all new names to Pirate fans, but all of them show something that all Pirate fans can get excited about.
And Coach, you make that very good point of you have obviously Bryant this weekend. We're not let me make it very clear, myself and many others that are close to the program, and we know how Coach Godwin, he's uber focused on Bryant. But then you have to play against we think the world of Justin Hare, a great coach at Campbell. I mean, look what they've done, Coach, there and at that school. And we're happy to have so many great coaches in North Carolina. We're very blessed to have 17 Division I. Not giving a shameless plug, but we did the preview for those schools, and it's just great to see that. But anyway, the main thing I wanted to bring up is you don't want to overlook Bryant, but at the same time, you got to make sure that's what I think Coach does a great job with, is making sure that with his guys, you don't want to, in other words, with those arms going into Tuesday, you've got to have something for Tuesday. And then, by the way, you have the next weekend, you got your next series. So I'm glad. One thing I want to say, Coach, too, is I'm glad we're not doing those 4 games in a weekend thing. I hated that last year.
I think everyone did, and it not only stretched the pitching staff by any means, but sometimes when you get late in a series like that, you wonder if you have a true winner because pitching depth is so important, but sometimes the offenses take over, and it becomes much more of an offensive game. But also players know or understand the characteristics of the other team so much better, and there's so much knowledge going into each and every pitch, not just out or inning, but and I'm not saying that gets old, not by any means, but 3-game series are a little more conducive to what college baseball is all about. Oh, one thing I would like to say, though, I want to expound on Dave's comment about Campbell. Let's all remember that last year Mississippi State was the national champion, and in their regional, who did they beat in the finals? Campbell Camels.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Campbell. Go ahead,
Game six of that regional, the Camels gave them everything they wanted, and you could really see that the Mississippi State fans respected Campbell's program and everything they brought to the table.
Yeah, I think I could be wrong on this, Bubba. I think Campbell had the lead twice and maybe 3 times in that game. I'm not sure, but I know they led more than once.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I was waiting.
No, I was just going to speak on kind of what you did, Campbell, and just the depth, the quality of baseball in North Carolina. You know, Dave mentioned that we did the preview of the 17 Division I schools in North Carolina. It's amazing the quality of baseball played in this state at the Division I level, and lower levels in college. Mount Olive and Lewisburg, et cetera. It's just I don't know that they're, when you look at a totality of a state, North Carolina, along with California, I guess Texas too, on the East Coast, I don't know of a better overall baseball state than North Carolina at the college level.
I totally concur, Kyle. And much is talked about with the large population states, California, Texas, and Florida. But you're so right. When you look at college baseball here, and I'll even take one of your steps even a little further, below the Division I level, I can think of national championships at Wesleyan, Mount Olive, and Wingate, and there may be more. So, you're looking at not just the D1 level, but at the D1 level, what teams have not really progress their programs to where they can compete with anyone, almost everyone in the state. UNC Charlotte last year, we all saw them in the regional. We can just keep going. We just talked about Campbell. We all know about the ACC schools, but really good and really solid baseball. And one of the most historical programs in the state, UNCW.
Coach, you mentioned Charlotte, and that kind of makes me think of conference realignment. And I wasn't necessarily pleased with the direction the American went with a lot of their invites. I kind of like what the Sun Belt's doing better, becoming more regional. I do, however, think that the baseball conference it may be improving. When you Rice is down right now, but there's still Rice. Charlotte is on the upswing. I'm trying to think of who else is coming in. FAU, yes. Good program.
Those exactly.
Yeah,
and very good program. Let's not forget North Texas State is pretty good as well. But go to Florida and Florida Atlantic. A lot of wins out of that program.
Yeah, so that was kind of my question, just your overall thoughts of the American going forward in baseball. And then also the Sun Belt is a conference that is incredibly interesting to me. They were already good with Coastal and Louisiana and South Alabama, Georgia Southern. Now you add Old Dominion to the mix, Southern Miss, and you got a heck of a baseball league down there too.
Very good point, and that's overlooked a lot, Kyle. You're talking about Southern Miss and those other programs, yes. All excellent baseball, and that might be the one that really is enhanced by conference realignment. But for us, Cincinnati only good within the last, say, 4 or 5 years. When I say good, I mean a team capable of winning the league. Before that, they were kind of the doormat of the league. But the teams coming in, they will add flavor and they will make things as good, if not better, for the American Conference.
Coach, I had a question as far as the realignment is concerned, and with the conference expansion like we're doing, does this, with the good teams that we have, which I'm really excited about for our baseball program, I guess it's what I'm trying to say, will this help our RPI, so to speak, and help us get into the top 8? I know that's very difficult to get the national seed, but will that help the Pirates knowing that we, I think Cliff does a great job with scheduling non-conference. We don't have to really a whole bunch of bus trips because we have, as we're talking about, great D1 baseball in North Carolina and in South Carolina, Virginia as well, tri-state area, if you will. But also you're looking now with this conference, is that a chance for us to improve our chances of finally getting a national seed?
Yeah, it really is, Dave. When you look at the SEC, the advantage they have over everyone else is they have to play each other. And in so doing, their RPI is automatically up. And that's almost every team in the league, which is why there's so much discussion about should the 12th place team in a certain league be granted an at-large. But along those lines, American certainly has a chance. If it is a little better, then that will boost the RPI just a little. And hopefully that's the case. When you say get us into the spot where we can host a super regional, that little boost is needed, especially from our league or in our league, to get us to that point. Now, on the downside, which is good, it's a good problem to have, but already we are the 4th or 5th best league year in and year out. And it'll be hard to surpass conferences like the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC, obviously. So it's only so much higher we can go in terms of ranking by that point, but RPI can increase, and down the road, that'll help us. Yes.
Just a fun thought. I know in basketball, they do the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Yeah, I don't even know how feasible it will be in baseball, but I was kind of thinking as we were talking about the Sun Belt and the American and the evolution of conferences, it would kind of be fun to see a Sun Belt American Baseball Challenge. I think, it would be good for RPIs and it would make for some fun early season baseball.
Yeah, and both those leagues are in the group of 5. So, that's very doable, Kyle. That's not something that one would look at and just scoff and say, well, why would we do that? That's a very good point and very doable as well. Now, we have those tournaments across the country. I know the Minute Maid in Houston is one of the bigger preseason tournaments is what I'm talking about. Obviously, the LeClaire tournament in Greenville is one of national stature as well. But even that could occur within the realm of these tournaments. But at the same time, a very good thought that two conferences meet up with each other, and particularly Sun Belt and American would be 2 that could benefit from playing each other in a challenge.
That's a great, I got to give you credit, Kyle. That's a great point because, Coach, as you know, the ESPN is always looking for more content, especially now with ESPN Plus. That will be pretty awesome to have, like we were talking about, a Southern Miss coming here. We go to Southern Miss for a series early on, say in March or something like that. I would have no problems with that because that's, I think, good for not only the leagues, but also it's great for those of us that love the Sun Belt teams and we love the American teams. And that would be pretty awesome. I hadn't even thought about that's a great point, Kyle. I hadn't even thought about that.
And ESPN has done a lot for college baseball. It's really promoted it just by being in its existence. But more important than that, Dave well said, they would relish the thought of something like those 2 leagues getting together. And in time, they may even promote it themselves. They may throw it out there for the commissioners to consider.
And for God's sake, we could get East Carolina and Coastal Carolina to play, which is something that I do not understand. Coach Overton, maybe you have an answer for that. I don't know if I've heard it's a little too far for a midweek trip, and I guess I don't know why it hasn't been done on an early weekend. with Coastal having the tradition they have in baseball and us having the tradition we have in baseball, the fact that we're not meeting every year it just blows my mind.
Yeah, and you go back a little ways, and Coach LeClaire's teams played Coastal. My teams played Coastal a few times, but I think more so than the travel, Kyle, is that there are some built-in with 56 games and with conference games being played. There's some built-in. I wouldn't call them rivalries because all of them are, but almost automatic matchups every year. Coastal with the clubs in South Carolina and us with many of the clubs in North Carolina. This year we have NC State, Duke, and North Carolina all home and home. Wilmington the same way, Campbell the same way. And then it leaves little room to fill the void. So I think on a certain year, maybe Coastal wants it and we can't, or another year we want it and they can't. But I think that has a little more to do with it than the travel.
Yeah, maybe maybe do something creative. Maybe a midweek game on a neutral site, like they got a minor league park down in Fayetteville now.
Very good point. Again, Kyle, you're bringing out some good things for baseball tonight. Yes.
Well, we have College of Charleston. Maybe what we could do is have 1 year where we play College of Charleston and 1 year we play Coastal. When we have College of Charleston, I mean, that's a weekend series. And with Coastal is such a great, 2015 with the national championship. So, I mean, it's not like that they're like a cupcake team. They've got their quality program.
Yeah. They've done some remarkable things. The year that they did win the national title, both the regional and super regional were away. They won at NC State, and then they won or swept LSU in the super regional. So, yeah, really good program.
I was actually in Myrtle Beach during the College World Series that year, and it was a lot of fun. It was fun to see the locals and even tourists get wrapped up in it. Admittedly, as fun as it was, I was extremely jealous.
No question about it. I know that time is going to come when we least expect it, right, Coach? When I know you and so many others that have been close to the program, you've been involved in the games, and we've been so close so many times, and so many regionals and super regionals. And I'll be glad, because I'm sick and tired of the announcers talking about how we're the one program that has all these regionals and super regionals, and we've never been to Omaha. And I'm like, but you got to understand, look at the consistency of our program. We are really one of the best teams, and not only in recent times, but like I said, for many, many years. You got to look at to me, the resume should be that how many teams can say how many regionals, the super regionals. There's plenty of teams out there that would love to have our resume as far as the whole body of work of our program, the history of it.
And Dave, I'll add to that your first comment about sometimes when we least expect it. We're just coming off of a season that was one of our most talented clubs, no question. 2 outstanding pitchers. We also had position players that posted offensive numbers off the charts, and yet we didn't go. We ran into 2 really good pitchers at Vanderbilt, but you never know. Sometimes you're going to have that average club, no one on it that makes a lot of noise, but they play really well together, and that's the team that we'll see in Omaha.
Coach, you look ahead at our schedule. We talked about Campbell. Obviously, next weekend's North Carolina. Everybody knows what that is. We got coming into the LeClaire Classic. We got Michigan with some Pirate ties there. Maryland. Who looking ahead at our non-conference schedule? Who's an opponent besides Bryant this weekend that Pirate fans maybe should that might be a bigger challenge than what some Pirate fans realize?
Well, interesting you asked that. Yeah. I don't think there's any question that we all know that Virginia Tech is an ACC team, but that's a program that has improved significantly within their league. And that comes up in a couple of weeks. I mean, that's certainly a game to keep an eye on. But when you look at programs without a name, or we sometimes don't think of a name for that program, they can be a little better than we all suspect. We mentioned Bryant. Again, let's not forget that they did lose a bulk of their pitching last year, but still they'll come in and as Kyle told us, they'll not be intimidated whatsoever. But the same for Mount St. Mary's. That's a club that's been to the NCAAs, not every year, not year in and year out, but they play West Coast baseball, and that can be hard on you at times, especially if it's played the right way. With that being said, I think that's certainly a series that we all need to keep our eye on. And then go back to the Charleston series that we were all saying earlier. They went to super regionals a number of years in a row, and were on the verge of going even the year that Coastal won the World Series. So I think those games like that are ones that Pirate fans should keep an eye on, because it'll kind of tell the Pirates something, especially the fact that they're going to have to play good baseball to win all three of those. Well, one is not a series, but the other two are series.
And Coach, we're talking about North Carolina baseball. When you look at Elon, you look at that game with Elon, you look at the Old Dominion game. We were just talking about them with I tell you what, the schedule is very tough, but I love Coach's mentality with Cliff Godwin. He's like, anywhere, anytime, any place. He doesn't care if it's in a grocery store parking lot, he's going to play the game. And you got to love that as a competitor. But the schedule is just is really tough. But I love that, because there's no point for us to have a great program to play easy teams. That's why I love seeing the schedule. When it came out, I was really thrilled about that. And you, if you're a fan and we are a top 15 program, that's what you want, right? Exactly.
That's who you want to play. And I go back to all three of you's point earlier in the broadcast, and that was Old Dominion comes in last year, and we had done really well. We had played really well against Old Dominion for years. For the last, I'll say 4 or 5 years, we've played them each year. But they roll in here last year, win a 12-inning game, hit a 3-run homer in the 12th, and win. And they'll tell you to this day that that was the game that was the catalyst for them having the season and becoming a number 1 seed in a regional, was going into Greenville and beating East Carolina at home. They knew they had a good club, but that proved to themselves that they were as good as they thought they could be.
Bubba, I know you had a question for a coach.
Yeah, before we get back to talking about this year's Pirates coach, Johnny Gardner chimes in on Facebook, brings up a guy I actually had an excellent conversation with a couple nights ago, and that is JJ, Jonathan Jenkins. And he said, Coach, give us a Jonathan Jenkins story.
Well, Jonathan and I talk about many, or we used to talk quite often about many of the games that he pitched in, or the championships that the Pirates won while he was here. And Jonathan was actually a walk-on who ascended to be not only the number 1 guy on our staff, but an All-American. And I don't think it gets any better than that. But the Jonathan Jenkins story that I remember the most was they were we took a trip to Auburn to play 2 games. They were coming off a College World Series. We had a good club. We knew we did. And 2 really good pitchers. Jonathan was our number 1. And we went in and won the first game of that series, was actually leading in the second game late. And the stars that they had on that club, Frank Thomas did not play in that game. He was not on that club, but he had just finished the year before on that College World Series team. And Jonathan threw a tight slider that day. I can't remember the hits. I remember we won the game 6-5, but he pitched exceptionally well, threw a complete game that day. And I remember a guy by the name of Tommy Thompson was a regional coordinator of umpires. He had home plate that day, and he raved after the game about Jonathan's slider and his pinpoint control. And he talked about how tough it was to beat Auburn at Auburn. but the Pirates went in that day and did it. And that's the game, I think, that defined Jonathan Jenkins' career at ECU.
It's funny you bring that couple game midweek series up, Coach, because JJ referenced it not in those terms for that reason, but he was talking about what an awesome experience that was to go down on the plains and play a couple against Auburn. I guess what, Coach Baird and also Billy Best?
That's correct. Both of them were Coach Baird was the head coach, and Billy Best had just left our staff to become an assistant down there. And, of course, Billy was a former center fielder for ECU, Hall of Fame member as well.
Now, Coach, getting back to this year's Pirates, taking a look at things positionally, and we talked about the rotation earlier, but talk about the catching situation. Some excellent options, starting with Ben Newton, who had some spot duty on some starts, probably 10 to 15 starts, and right off the top of my head in relief, and played in relief significantly of Seth Cadell a season ago.
Yeah, and let's first of all remember that even though Ben was the backup last year, he did hit 325. And late in the season had some key hits for the Pirates when he was spelling Seth Cadell. Certainly a guy that's improved since he got here. He came in from junior college, and he's what we like to call a quick thrower. He doesn't have great arm strength, but what's so important is the time from the mitt to second base. And he cut that time down to where he could shut down running games. So, again, a very capable catcher. Also, an eye to keep on, a person to keep your eye on, is Ryan Mcchrystal, a young freshman who possesses both what you call a catch and throw guy, but also for a freshman swings an above average bat. And he's going to see playing time much this year, like Ben did last year, if not more. So I think that's a position that one of those two guys, Coach Godwin can feel very comfortable with.
Now let's go around the horn. The Pirates are very, very fortunate to have some interchangeable parts. Obviously, Zach Agnos did a tremendous job a year ago on getting the bulk of the starts at third base. Also, AMAC, is looking like he may be the starter there this year with Zach sliding over to second base. Of course, Ryder Giles, very proven and tremendous glove at short. And then you have Josh Moreland as well as other options at first base.
Well, when you look at the infield, that's the most experienced group on the diamond. All four of those guys that you just mentioned have much playing time behind them. But Agnos is the guy that can play short, third, and second, equally, one just as well as the other. And at this point, my understanding is that he'll be moved over to second base, and he can handle that very well because he's fluid as a middle infielder, much like he has range as a corner guy at third base. With him moving over, that's going to allow third base to go to Mcchrystal, who played a lot of it last year. Now, let's remember that quite a bit of power was lost out of this lineup last year. And so Alex is going to be Alex and Josh Moreland and Bryson Worrell are going to be the guys counted on to produce a little power or extra base hit. So while Alex plays a very fundamental third base and he's very solid as a player there, his bat speaks volumes at that corner position. Ryder Giles, softest hands on the team. There's no question, and that's why he's the shortstop. Good range, very solid defender, but really, really soft hands. And he can do some things with the baseball when he catches it. And then Moylan, the fifth rounder out of high school with the power. Let's not forget last year at Vandy, he was the one that hit that massive home run off Jack Leiter. And that's no easy feat there. So when you see the experience of the infield, Bubba, that's probably going to be the strength of the defense on the diamond.
And then of course, guys like Joey Barini and that had key at bats last year. I know Coach Godwin here recently referenced Barini. He maybe had 5 or 6 at bats, but every single one of them came in a big situation.
Yeah, he actually pinch hit Barini in the conference tournament in a very critical situation because of what he had accomplished to that point. So he has confidence in him as well as Jacob Starling, who played a little second base and actually played a little shortstop as well last year. But those two guys, I think you're going to see on the diamond quite a bit in the middle positions. In backup roles, unless they win a starting position, and that very well could happen too.
Then out in the outfield, you have proven commodities like Bryson Worrell, obviously Lane Hoover, and then Riley Johnson saw significant action, kind of in a spot starting role last year. And one of the things about Riley, he really showed some power that probably surprised some folks.
Oh, no, Bubba, you're so right. If you really study his swing, Riley Johnson will probably be in the outfield, one of the two corner spots. But if you really analyze his swing, it's sweet and it's very flexible, which means the bat head gets through the zone quickly, and there has to be a little pop in that bat. Again, in a limited role, he hit 3 home runs last year and several extra base hits. But I think you're going to see Riley Johnson evolve. First of all, he's a very good athlete, very small in stature. He's a small guy, but he can do some things, and particularly with that bat as well. He throws, he runs, speed is really good. So he's going to be a marquee player before he leaves ECU. We all know that Lane Hoover in right is a spark plug, and we know that he finds ways to get on base. Sometimes you even think he invents them. But then Bryson Worrell, the athlete, the guy that we like to say 5 tools, but he's more than that. He's such a good athlete, and he's put more consistency together over the years. And when it all comes completely together, and this may be the year, then you just have a star player right there. But he, Moylan, and Mcchrystal are going to be the guys that will supply the power in the lineup. You'll see those 3 guys hit in the middle of the order.
And Coach, is there anything behind the scenes that maybe you're aware of as far as this team? We talk about players, but things that we're here right before the season starts now that maybe some insights that fans would not know that will be great as hard to believe it's less than 24 hours and we're going to be playing baseball.
Well, I think that the history of Cliff Godwin and the way he manages a club, he gets a lot of people in games, and he does that on multiple occasions. He likes to keep all of his players involved and, as he calls it, engaged. But the one thing I think you'll see this year, I think you'll not only see more of that and more of the freshmen involved in it, but I think you'll see them take a little larger role as we see Jake Hunter starting game 3 of this weekend. You'll see more things like that as the season evolves. It'll not be halfway through the season before we see, say, a guy like Riley Johnson last year. I think more of the freshmen are going to play more of or new players, not freshmen. New players will play more of an impact earlier in the season. And that's about the only insight, I think, because of all the experience ECU has on the field. And that's a key word for the Pirates this year.
Coach O, one of the individuals I've heard a lot about, and that is Jacob Jenkins Cowart. If you would talk about him, 6'6", and one left-handed bat.
Yeah, Bubba, I really haven't had a chance to see him much. The times I've had a chance to see the team, I haven't seen him, but like you, as you said, very strong offensive player. And I do know this. I do know when you read D1 baseball, you read the baseball, what the knowledgeable baseball people have to say about conferences, leagues, teams, and when they list individuals and he is listed among those, you know he's a contributor immediately.
No doubt about it, Coach. When it's all said and done, you've been with us a long time tonight. We appreciate it very much. Do you see this Pirate team, I would say at the very least, will be in a regional, but do you see the Pirates yet again, where it's become like old hat, but it never gets old to host a regional?
I definitely see the Pirates in a regional, Dave. Yes, but the reputation that's been established over the last 10, 15 years, maybe and longer, I think has assisted the Pirates in hosting regionals year in and year out. Now, it started with one, and then what was it, 3, 4, 5 years later, another, but not now. It's become a usual thing, and I see that not changing at all.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We look forward to you and the call. In fact, Alan Vick, our good friend, said he's going to be doing his radio show, and not to get in trouble with the bosses, but he's going to be doing his radio show and listening to Scooter and Coach O. So, AV, I want to give you a shout out. One of my dear friends in radio. When you make a friend in radio, Coach, as you probably know, you've done something. And there he goes. I'll be listening tomorrow while doing my radio show. Best of luck to Scooter and Coach O. Alan Vick is one of the best human beings on the planet. I think the world of him, and appreciate having him as a friend, but also a radio colleague. And Coach, good luck to you and Scooter. One final thing I will ask you, what does it take to get back? I know your folks don't know that, but you handle operations and you do such a great job. You make it look easy. How can we get these special events back, like when we had WWE and we have, of course, Harlem Globetrotters? Missed those. I know COVID played a big deal in that, but I'm hoping we can get those back and maybe some concerts there at Williams Arena.
Yeah, actually, Dave, the Globetrotters do come in March, actually, next month. And It's late next month. But you're right. Due to the pandemic, a lot of that was shut down for a couple of years. And I think on the horizon, you'll see more things like that as we go.
All right. Well, good luck to you guys tomorrow, this weekend on 94.3 The Game. And I know The Game also will be on ESPN Plus. Thank you so much, Coach. Good luck, and look forward to having you soon on Extra Innings, too. We always have a blast after one of the weekend series and having you on.
Yes. Well, I've really enjoyed being with you guys, as I always do, and it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Gary Overton, appreciate him very much on tonight with us. Pirates with the big series starting. And Bubba, another one of our guests we hadn't had on a while, but certainly I can't wait to change the name of his podcast. I know we'll talk about that. I know he does too. Bubba, very happy to have him back on.
Yeah, very excited to welcome Ben Upton back to the show from the 11.7 podcast. Ben, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. And boys, I am so sorry I was late. We ran a little long today recording our episode for the podcast. But you guys know I love doing this show. I think this is the third time I've been on now. Last time I was here, I was boots on the ground in Omaha.
Yep.
Unfortunately, those umpires in Nashville kind of screwed you guys out of a trip there, I feel like. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I'm happy to be here. I was excited. Right after the podcast, I said, boys, I got to run. I got to do this podcast with East Carolina guys. And they're like, all right, tell them we said good luck this year. So that's from the 11.7 guys. We're all rooting for you.
Thank you. And that's the very thing. We were just talking with Coach O, Dr. Gary Overton, one of the best coaches in the history of our school, and certainly the all-time winningest coach. He does the analyst job on the radio side of things, but been very excited about college baseball. I think we talked about North Carolina being such a rich state. We were talking about that with our last guest, with Dr. Gary Overton. We just want to get your perspective on, Kyle was talking about that earlier. What are the states that we obviously think about? California, we think about Texas. For us, we're biased because North Carolina has a great baseball. But what are the states? Do you have like a top 5 off the top of your head that would be like, we're looking like a global, a national thing here with you guys with 11.7. But what are the states that come to mind with great baseball for you?
So obviously, I mean, you guys hit on it, but if you go just look at the MLB draft, I think that's the best way to evaluate talent and what states they come from. And year in and year out, California is always there at the top of the list. California, I think, produces the best baseball players as a whole, because the weather's always nice there. There's a lot of financial benefits. You know, a lot of people that live out there have money for travel ball tournaments and development and things. So California is on the top of my list. Now, for the second, I'm a little biased here because, you know, grew up in Houston, Texas, and the kids I used to play against used to give me nightmares because they were just bigger, faster, and stronger than me. They all played football. Texas high school football is huge. And every year you see 1 to 2 first-round high school kids getting drafted out of the state of Texas. And then it's really a toss-up 3, 4, and 5. Florida, I think, gets a little overrated. Florida really has been a football dominant state for the last 10 years or so. There's been some good talent now out of the high school ranks for baseball, but I don't know. Between Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, even those 4 states, kind of 3 through 6 for me. Now there are some sneaky states that produce good talent, and one of them might blow your mind. But New Jersey has come out with some really, really good prospects. They always find their way to Vanderbilt, or they find their way to Virginia, even like UNC and Clemson. But I was surprised going through like my preseason roster looks. There's quite a few from New Jersey. Mike Trout's from New Jersey, committed to be a Pirate, and he's known as the best baseball player out right now. So New Jersey is a sneaky state. Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, I mean, they're right there in the heart of things as well. But I don't know. I think it goes California, Texas, and then Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, if I had to put my life on the line.
Yeah, you read my mind, Ben, as far as Mike Trout. When you brought up New Jersey, that's the name that immediately came to mind when he committed to former East Carolina coach Billy Godwin all those years ago. And, you know, excuse me, many times we talked. Could you imagine Mike Trout with one of those bats instead of just a wooden bat? I mean, he'd have probably hit one over Charles Boulevard.
Yeah, and he was there. Like his freshman year would have been the last year of the BESR bats, the Gorilla Ball bats.
Right.
I mean, he would have hit 25 home runs as a freshman. And it's funny because people say, oh, well, he would have been a freshman. He probably wouldn't have played. No, Mike Trout was playing in the major leagues as a 2020 guy at the age of 19. He was 19 years old playing center field for the Angels. So he would have had probably the biggest impact a freshman has ever had in college baseball.
Yeah, he's like a man's man. I mean, he's one of those guys that, you know, you hear the terms generational player, but if he'd played at East Carolina, I mean, for sure. And he's a guy that, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but because he committed to the Pirates, I follow his career. I would say right now, unless things change, he's definitely a Hall of Famer for me. I mean, I know there's got to be more of a body of work, of course, but unless something majorly happens where a bad injury or something. But for me, for what he's done for the game and everything, I definitely think he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
You going out on the limb there, Dave, saying Mike Trout should be a Hall of Famer?
I know, but there, you know, it was one of those things. Hey, don't get me started about Cooperstown. There's a lot of players that should be in the Hall of Fame that are not, and they're so snobby, and they need to have get rid of the baseball writers. They need to like have a legitimate like 5 or 6. Look at all the other Hall of Fames. They give 5 or 6 guys in every year. Sometimes you have where the baseball writers are so snobby they have nobody going in.
The blank ballots gets me so mad. The blank ballots, like why even vote? You know, like put somebody on the list. I agree.
So who would you guys, besides Pete Rose, who would you guys? Who's the one player you guys think should be in the Hall of Fame that's not, and who's the one player that's in the Hall of Fame that you think maybe shouldn't be?
Well, I'll start with I believe that I think it's crazy. People will disagree with me. I think that now time has passed that the steroids players that I believe I did not think they deserved to be first round, you know, first ballot guys. But I mean, there's no way that this is the thing that gets me with people with steroids. Okay. If you take away, okay, let's say that if I take steroids right now, I can't hit a home run. I didn't have the talent to be at that level. And people try
to it wasn't necessarily steroids, Dave. It was human growth hormone. It's not exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that It doesn't take a player like me that would be below average and make me hit 50 home runs. Those guys were talented, and they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. They did not deserve to be first ballot. I would punish them for a few years, but they should be in the Hall of Fame. There's no question about it. That's stupid. Pete Rose is one of my all-time favorite players across the board. I mean, the guy it's ridiculous now that they've made one guy. You can't tell me there's other guys that don't bet on baseball, and they've made that one guy. And what's going to happen is eventually the guy will die, and they'll put him in because they'll say that there's no way that he can, bet on baseball. But not to have him in makes Cooperstown a joke. And I'm sorry, I'll say that, and people can forgive me, but I come from a baseball family, a guy that should be, my uncle today's his birthday, Roger Craig, he's 92 today. But he should be in the Hall of Fame. There's guys like Don Zimmer. They gave like 38, 40 some years to the game, and they're not in the Hall of Fame. Are you kidding me? I mean, there's so many guys like my great uncle that should be in, that gave their life, and they won as a player, they won as a coach, and they won world championships, and they're not in. And I think it's ludicrous. But anyway, I don't want to get off on that tangent, but I'm just very passionate about Cooperstown. I really do.
I was just gonna say Del Murphy.
I love Del Murphy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a perfect example of a guy that had a really good career, and if it was a legitimate Hall of Fame, they would have him in. But they want to be baseball writers are the worst. I mean, I'm sorry if I offend people. But
you're good.
Yeah, NBA. You look at NBA. You look at the NFL. Look at how many great guys are going to the NFL this year. And Cooperstown could be huge. They could be huge with all the players that should be in. But anyway, I don't want to take up the whole show on Cooperstown in the Hall of Fame. Sorry, Ben.
No, hey, I'm right there with you. You hit the nail on the head with the Bonds and Clemens. Now, there's a guy that I really do think deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and you guys might disagree, but Billy Wagner was one of the most dominant closers for an 8 to 10 year period, and it was him, Mariano Rivera, and Hoffman that were lights out. And if you put their stats up through like a 10, I think it was 10 or 11 season span, Wagner's stats were better than both of those guys, like hands down. And so Billy Wagner is a guy that if he would have played in New York, or if he would have played in Boston, St. Louis, Chicago, he would have 100% have been I think a first ballot Hall of Famer. Is one of the most electric closers of all time. And since he played in Houston, and I know Houston's a big city, but it's not a huge baseball city. It's not the media coverage that you're going to get in Chicago or LA or New York or Boston. I think he's getting left out of a lot of ballots just because guys don't remember the name. It didn't stick. He never won a World Series, those kind of things. So I would like to see Wagner get in, though.
I have a question for you, Ben. Will we have, speaking of Major League Baseball, will we have a season? Another thing I'm really angry about right now is Kyle. I know Bubba, the three of us have talked about it. You have a fight between millionaires versus billionaires. It's so ridiculous. We saw how great of a number the Super Bowl had. If this were, the NFL, then, it's one thing. But when Major League Baseball is not the number one sport in America. And I don't understand why these guys, these men, can't understand that you're hurting yourself. You're hurting the game. And the commissioner should be fired. Manfred should be fired. I know he works for the owners, but there's no way in the world that the Major League Baseball should have a lockout. That's absurd. It's ludicrous.
Yeah, and to answer your question, yeah, we're going to have a season, but it won't be the 162. I have a friend that plays Major League Baseball that I'm really close with, and you guys can probably assume who it is. I don't want to name drop here, but he told me that the players are preparing for 120, pretty much between 120 and 81 game season. They're going to miss about 40 games, they think, because this is not going to get cleared up anytime soon. It's going to push spring training back. They still need probably 4 weeks to prepare in spring training, and those 4 weeks could be 20 games. So if you don't get spring training started until April, you're missing 40 games, maybe more. And they're not going to extend the season out to November or December. That would never work competing with football. So it's going to be a shortened season. I'm fairly certain.
Everybody all jumping at once. So we'll move back to college baseball.
I didn't mean to.
No, very quickly before we move back to the college game, as far as the Hall of Fame discussion goes, I was trying to unmute myself, but Fred McGriff, crime dog, or as he became when he was traded to Atlanta, game one, at least there at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, he became the fire dog. But I think it was 493 career home runs, and hit about 285, and just so consistent. He played 19 seasons, and he had 25 plus home runs in 13 of those seasons. So he's someone that's definitely worthy of consideration.
Yeah, no doubt. And he was never linked to steroids or anything like that. So, hit 500 home runs naturally. I mean, how many? There was 25, 30 guys to do that. It's definitely a stat that should pop out. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why he's not in it. He kind of played before my time, I guess, which is funny to say because he played in the 90s, but I was a little bit too young.
Hey, and great call on Billy Wagner. I was going to bring up Billy Wagner as well.
But that's the thing, Ben, and then I promise we'll move on. Sorry, Kyle, but
hey, no, I'm here for however long you need us to. We can talk about whatever you guys want. I'm here for you.
All right, I just wanted to mention that very fact of that's the point is there. It's not like we're saying like guys that we had that played on the team we liked and there was like a sentimental favorite. We're talking about a lot of quality dudes that had really good numbers that are. When you think about a batting average, when you think about home runs, when you think about saves, when you think about wins as a pitcher, 300, there's certain things like that should be like automatic. Like that dude is automatically in. I don't care if you're the snobbiest baseball writer, you should. And that goes back to another thing, guys, that frustrates me is that you're supposed to be, if you're snobby, aren't you supposed to know have enough intelligence to know and common sense that there's certain benchmarks that if that dude gets it, he's automatically in. And it's an easy job if you're a voter, if you're a baseball writer, that should be, okay, you have this many saves, you have this many wins as a pitcher, you have this many strikeouts. So you know what I mean? There's certain things that 3,000 hits, there's certain things that I can just rattle off the top of my head. And I don't have the mind of Bubba Rosenbaum, that he's a stats guy, he's our numbers guy, but I'm smart enough to know that guy should be in. So that's what frustrates me. And sorry about the rant about Cooperstown, but I'm not a fan at all. I'll never go to Cooperstown. Sorry, Cooperstown, New York, but get it right.
They're out of business now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. They don't care. I know. That's the problem. They don't care. They should care, but they don't.
What about obscure names? What about just names that you never? I wonder if people even think about. Spike Owens, Bip Roberts,
But there's a lot of, but that's the thing. There's a lot of good players. Obviously, the great players are going to get in, but there's a lot of good players that should be in and are not. But let's talk about college baseball because that's why we're here. And what are your takes? Obviously, with the opening of the season, what's going through your mind as far as teams we should look for? First of all, about our Pirates, what are you thinking about ECU? We'll be homers and
be homers. And the reason why I didn't avoid this podcast is because I might be the highest guy on East Carolina out of any college baseball social media person. I on our episode 2 weeks ago when we were doing our Omaha 8 predictions, East Carolina was a team that was a no-brainer for me. We all saw what happened last year in the Super Regional. Gavin Williams pitched his tail off. And East Carolina, I think, should have won that series. There was a lot of questionable calls from umpires, and they almost took down Goliath and Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter. They just kind of had a bad matchup in that Super Regional, and I really think they're head and shoulders above everybody else in the American. And, of course, the American has been up and down, I guess, to say the least. Like last year it was down, but 2 years ago it was up. So I haven't done a huge dive into the American Conference yet. but I do know that East Carolina, as far as like a pure talent standpoint, even though you lose Connor Norby and you lose Gavin Williams and some key pieces from last year's team, I think they have what it takes to finally make that trip to Omaha. And it just feels like the year that East Carolina is going to host a super regional, be a top 8 national seed, and finally make that trip to Omaha.
Hey, Ben,
How do you think,
do what? I'm sorry.
We were talking over each other. The news came out yesterday that our ace Carson Wisenhunt suspended at least for this weekend. The rumors are that it's PED related. I don't. Who knows if that's true or not? Really don't want to speculate at this point because it's a rumor, and we probably shouldn't even be speculating on the air about it. But if he is out for the year, how do you think that affects the Pirates? Are you still as high on us?
Yeah, I mean that definitely knocks it down a couple notches. He was going to be the centerpiece in that rotation, the guy that you can rely on to get outs every Friday night. But I did see that little press conference they'd had, and Coach did not look happy. He looked very frustrated. It looked like he was up all night the day before. Now, what I will say, I know there are rumors swirling that PED use it could be potentially it. I'm going to tell you guys right now, because I'm assuming they do the same thing with drug tests. The schools will do random drug tests, but it's not for PEDs. The only place that a PED test would be taking place is through the NCAA itself. The NCAA would have to go to campus, and it's random, so it's not like, hey, we're going to PED test your 4 best players. It's, either coach pick 4 guys, or we're going to do this guy, this guy, this guy, whether they're on the roster, the active roster or not. So I have a very hard time believing that between last week when Wisenhunt was pitching in a scrimmage and this week, the NCAA decided to park their little drug testing bus across the street from campus and pick Carson Wisenhunt and him fail a drug test. So I mean, you know how the internet is. Things can get misworded, missaid. He could have failed a drug test, but not for PEDs. He could have. I don't know. Like I just think it's very hard to believe that all of those things took place and there was not some kind of big story coming out of it. Because personally, I think if he did fail a PED test and he's out for the whole year, coach would have went out and said it like, hey, he's not a part of the team. He's off the team. He made a choice, bad decision. We're going to move on. But he just said, hey, violation of team rules, which could be anything from being late to practice or missing study hall or really, I mean, there's so many different team rules out there that he could have broken. I think it's going to stay internal, and I really don't think it's a PED thing at all. I would put it at less than a 1% chance.
Well, I hope you're right. And in that case, we shouldn't even be talking about it. But rumors come out, and I actually hate dealing with stuff like that and discussing rumors like that on the podcast when it comes to players. But it's out there. It's being talked about. And, we are not accusing Carson of anything. This is pure speculation. And hopefully it's all BS. And I was not completely aware of the testing policies for PEDs like you just broke it down. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's an NCAA thing, and they very rarely ever come. In my 4 years of college baseball, I think they came one time. Now, I'm not saying it could. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. They could have showed up the week before the season started and said, hey, take this test. And they got the results back, and they did it. Sure, that could have happened. I'm not saying it's impossible, but saying very, 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 very unlikely.
And that's the one thing I was going to say that you brought up a great point, Ben, is that I was wondering, and you said it, I was thinking about that this afternoon because we were going to do the show tonight, is why in the world would coach just act like that it's a short period of time? You would think that if it was an NCAA situation that he's a no-nonsense guy and he's not going to sugarcoat anything. It doesn't matter if it's Carson Wisenhunt or a guy that we don't even know, his name. He would have already said that guy's off the team now. I really believe that. So not that I'm wishful thinking because anything's possible, but that was one of the things I was thinking about is that the very fact of you have Wisenhunt the guy is going to be maybe a first rounder, second rounder for sure. Why would he risk that, knowing that he's going to have big time money? And then the MLB, would they take a risk on a guy that he's already done that, which is probably going to be his last year at ECU. I just don't think that maybe I'm wrong. And I know that people say I'm blindly optimistic. A lot of people that listen and watch the show. But for me personally, I just find it hard to believe that a guy that's the caliber of Whisenhunt would take that chance. I mean, I know that anything's possible. But like Kyle said, we don't like talking rumors. However, when a lot of Pirate Nation's talking about it, this gives us a chance to talk about it and kind of dissect it, meaning that people don't always know what they're talking about. And just like you said, there's a lot of misinformation. So sometimes it's good to have the dialogue, not because we believe it's true or that we want to add fuel to the fire, pardon the cliche, but it's good to talk about, right?
Right. No, 100%. And you'll be able to know before first pitch tomorrow, whether it's a serious matter or if it's something like he messed up, he made a mistake, and he's going to be treated like everybody else on the team. And coaches, we've seen college baseball coaches in the past send a message to the rest of the team by suspending the best player on the team the first weekend for a decision they either made in the fall or past summer or the day before opening day. And it really does send a message to the team saying, okay, this guy's in charge. We have to make sure we abide by his rules and our team rules. No player is bigger than the program itself. So you'll be able to know before first pitch tomorrow. If Whisenhunt is out there shagging balls in the outfield and during BP and he's cutting up in the dugout, it's probably a mistake. He probably did something like, just speculating what I used to do in college, like maybe was talked to by the cops downtown Greenville 2 weeks ago on a Saturday night when he had a beer in his hand or something, and the cop told the coach, or it could be if he's, not out during BP, not out helping shag fungos or hit fungos or clean up baseballs, and he's not in the dugout. Maybe it is time to do a little reality check and say, is this guy going to be a part of our team this year?
Yeah. I mean, we had a question about what if there is marijuana in the system? What is that compared to we know about the PED is like obviously that's one that.
That's going to be at the discretion of the coach, probably.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this: when I was at Mercer, or actually the year before I got to Mercer, our best pitcher, he was all conference, or I say I wasn't on the team yet, but Mercer's best pitcher failed a drug test. It was a school drug test, random drug test, and schools usually test for street drugs, whether it's marijuana, Adderall, Vyvanse, those cocaine, those kind of drugs that you can get on the street. Schools test for that, and it's usually starting at a 3-game suspension, which would be really just a 1-game suspension for a starting pitcher. And it could go all the way up to like 25% of the year, which I think that's what Mercer did with our guy. But each team is going to have, or each school and athletic department is going to have kind of a guideline to go off of for a failed drug test for marijuana versus a failed drug test for cocaine or heroin, whatever the hardcore drug is. They have it filtered out and then structured usually. Like, hey, if a football player got caught smoking dope, he's out 1 game. But if a football player got caught, injecting heroin, it's like, hey, we're going to get him to rehab and he'll be gone for 6 months, stuff like that. So
we got football players shooting heroin. We got all kinds of problems.
That's what I'm saying. It was a terrible example, but I hope you guys got the gist. Like there's structures set in place because, I mean, these kids are 18 to 22. Yeah. They make mistakes. They're kids like everybody else. If you go around campus and drug tested every single kid on campus, you're going to find that maybe not a majority, but 30% or so are doing some sort of recreational drugs. So,
and again, I want to be clear, we're not making any kind of allegations towards Carson. Wasn't it? And it's we're just speaking in general terms, and there are rumors out there about PD, and as far as anything else, marijuana, anything like that. Haven't really heard any of those rumors. Personally, I hope it is marijuana and not PED, because that's it should be a lot less of a problem. And who knows? It might not be anything like that. Rumors get started for all kinds of different reasons. It could be as simple as like you said, he had a beer in his hand talking to cops last Saturday night.
Yeah, and most college towns, if you're an athlete for that school, I'm just going off of what I know best, and that's Macon, Georgia, and Mercer University. Police officers kind of know athletes, and they'll talk to you or whatever. So if an athlete gets in trouble downtown, they usually don't take them down. Like, they don't book them in the jail. They'll just tell coach, and then coach will run you until you throw up, or such and such. So, like, maybe that was. I'm not saying this was the case at all. I'm just saying I could see a scenario where, maybe Wisenhunt got in a little bit of trouble downtown or at a bar or something, and cop told the coach, and this is his punishment. It's everything staying internal. They're not going to blurt anything out to the media. It's a very tight-knit community in that locker room. So, I mean, it could be anything, or it could be that he was late to class 3 different times and they gave him a warning, and he kept being late for class, and that's his punishment. But at the end of the day, it's week 1, it's game 1. It sucks he's not going to be on the mound, but this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. So it's not going to hurt the Pirates if he doesn't start this one weekend.
Right. And
I'll tell you what, if I was, and you don't want to feed into it, but if being the rumors are out there so publicly on the internet, if I was coach, and it wasn't what people are talking about PED stuff,
squish that.
I believe, I'd come on out and say it. Hey, quit talking about it. It's not PEDs. You need to quit spreading rumors about my players. And and Coach Godwin, man, I don't know how familiar you are with him personally. He can be full of fire, man. That's why I hope you don't get pissed at us for even speculating about it. We may never get any access to the baseball team anymore.
No, I mean, I know it was his first year, 2016 or 2014.
2015.
15. He got hired in 14, yeah.
So Mercer played against ECU in the 2017 season, and the Thursday when we were shagging ball or taking BP after the bus trip, Thursday night before the weekend series, Coach Godwin came over, and you could tell he's an intimidating guy, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's exactly the coach you want to play for. He has his guys' backs, but he's very social with the other teams. He respects other baseball players, respects other coaches. I mean, he's really like the pinnacle of coaches in college baseball, which is why these SEC teams were trying to throw money at him last offseason. Like, hey, come be the head coach at LSU, come be the head coach at Ole Miss if things get shaken up. It really is a blessing that East Carolina has a guy like him, because maybe a handful of coaches can say they have a better resume. The only thing that Godwin's lacking right now is a trip to Omaha, which, if you look at the grand scheme of things, making a trip to Omaha in a non-Power 5 school with resources and things that some of these Power 5 schools have nowadays, it's tough. It's an uphill battle, but he's put them in position year in and year out. He's definitely a coach that I would want, like, my kids to play for.
Yeah, and we and there's a lot of people. In fact, I'll put this up here on the screen. Josh O'Neill says, I'll just say I know Carson and his family personally and does not like him to take anything intentionally. I mean, I still say that I'm not 100% convinced on this whole thing. And also said this one was started by Igo, stating the information comes from scouts. So talking about, I don't know that Igo started the rumor. So we think a lot of Stephen Igo. He's doing exactly what we're doing. If we hear something, we're going to put it out there. Not that we, and Coach knows this very well, we're not saying it's a fact. We like to be very, and thank you, Kyle, for being, like the show says, our show, the sports objective. We're trying really hard to be objective, even though that we are ECU guys. But at the same time, there are people that listen and watch our show. They would want to know about this, so we're going to talk about what's hot right now.
No, 100%. And like another thing I want to add to that, I was almost an area scout for
and we lost Ben. We'll get him back on, and just a second, I'm sure he'll get back on with us.
That
Kyle,
was rough. He must have got cut off all at once.
yeah, I don't know what happened there, but certainly, Kyle, I love the fact that I appreciate you very much of knowing that we know the program, and a lot of people listening and watching, that we're not saying anything that this is true, but at the same time,
Well, no, and because it's just a rumor, and whenever you're whether it's PEDs or marijuana or anything, whenever you entertain those allegations and you have no facts, it's it's an attack on someone's character until you know it factually. So that's why I'm really not comfortable talking about it.
yeah.
But I get it that it's out there and everybody is talking about it. But just take it all with a grain of salt. And like I said, Carson, I don't know him personally, but he's been a great Pirate up to this point, and whatever he did, I'm sure it's forgivable. He didn't murder nobody.
Oh, no question. And we have Ben back on there. Sorry, I don't know what happened there, but
No, listen, it wasn't not you. It was me. My computer does this funny trick where
I've had girls say that before.
right before I pull out a hot take, it just shuts off on me, so I don't say it. But no, I'm just kidding. I think my Wi-Fi went out. We're going through a little bit of thunderstorms right now, but man, I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to add one more thing to it. With East Carolina and the baseball program that they have, the amount of support that they have with the fans and with the community, it's kind of a cool thing for me to see that, like, rumors, and I know rumors are bad, but to have rumors starting about college baseball and college baseball players means that they're finally getting attention that they've always wanted. Because if you look at it in the college football and college basketball spectrum, NBA, MLB, NFL, media members are always trying to push these agendas and start these rumors, everything like that. And for me now, because 10 years ago, we didn't see much college baseball media across the landscape. And now that there's rumors and everything, that scouts are starting to get involved and things like that, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool that we're getting a little bit of publicity in college baseball now, where people are actually starting to care about whether the player on their team is going to be suspended for the whole year or not. And it's not like, oh, who's that guy? Wait, what? You know what I'm saying? So I find it oddly intriguing that college baseball is starting to grow to a point where social media, there's buzz about like why this player is not playing and like what could have happened and things like that. So it's just kind of like a personal hot take for me.
No, I get what you're saying.
Right. I mean, it's like when scouts are leaking things to the public, and the public is like having a reaction now. Something pretty neat about that to me, where it I don't know, it kind of feels a little bit more edgy, and people like edgy stuff. You go on people's Netflix histories and they're watching very edgy comedies or very edgy shows about murder mysteries, murder doctor. Like, everybody kind of has like a little dark side to them. And yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. And I'll be the nicest guy to you face to face or on a podcast. But when I'm sitting and speculating on things, like, I don't know, like sometimes that there's something fun about being a little edgy. So I think it's very, very cool now that college baseball has somewhat of a platform where there's buzz starting to stir around like these suspensions and these accusations and stuff.
And guys, would it be possible? This is off the top of my head, but you don't think a scout would start that rumor to hurt his draft status, do you? His stock?
I do.
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. That just came. I hadn't even thought about that, but we've heard about this all week. Is it?
Well, well, what's the point? Because it's look, if it's a bullshit rumor, then he's going to be back in a couple of weeks, and you'll know it's a bullshit rumor because if that was the case, that's a automatic suspension by the NCAA. So the scout doing that, it would be a temporary, it would be temporary that it would hurt his draft status. By the time the draft came around, we would know if it's true or not. So I don't know. Who knows? How would a scout have that information this quickly? Who the hell knows? We'll find out soon enough if it's true or not. And I certainly, along with all Pirates, hope it's not true.
I'll tell you this. You guys know the whole, because you guys are in media now, and like we all, I guess, are considered like sports media. You know the whole scenarios where sometimes things get intentionally leaked just to see who they can trust and who they can't trust.
Mm-hmm.
If Godwin or if a player or like an assistant coach leaks something to maybe someone tight knit, like a reporter or a scout or somebody that
you know what? That's an interesting point.
Is tied into the program. It's an outrageous thing to think that someone is failing a PED test a week before the season. Like it just didn't make sense in my mind, and I already explained why. Like everything that has to happen in order for that to even take place. Maybe like they had a little bit of trust issues, and this was something that they leaked out. And I'm not. It's not right to leak wrong information, but at the same time, they might have done it for trust purposes.
There goes our credentials.
Well, there goes your credentials.
Exactly.
I'll be okay for once. Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's an inside joke. But anyway, moving right along so we don't get in trouble.
Hey, I'll take all the blame. I'll be your guys' shield.
Okay.
Just
It was
on
Ben
me.
Upton. He always
Yes.
brings out the worst in me. But Ben, as far as we can move along, as far as college baseball is concerned, what are some teams that you're looking at right now for you guys? And by the way, for those that don't know, the 11.7, the College Baseball Podcast, we love it. We've loved it. We were fans of the podcast, and then we invited you on. And people need to listen to it. If you're a college baseball fan, I'm giving you a plug there, Ben. But you guys
appreciate that. Yeah.
A really nice job the last couple of years that I've been listening to it. What are some teams that you're looking at that are under the radar? Maybe they're not brand name teams. They're not in the SEC, but teams that you're looking at right now that you're like, wow, you guys better watch out for this team or that team.
Yeah. I mean, I have a whole list. Like, how much time do we have? No, but
Your top five.
two brand name teams that are not in the SEC that people really need to keep an eye on: Georgia Tech and Florida State. I've been really high on them, and I'm the type of person that when I'm researching a team, I try to find reasons why I should not trust them, or like find reasons why they're not going to make it to Omaha. It was really hard for both of those teams. They have a great core. The transfer portal was perfect for both of those teams as well. So Georgia Tech and Florida State are going to make a lot of noise at the ACC. Louisiana Tech is another team that people really need to keep their head on a swivel for, because last year they kind of took college baseball by a storm. They were number one in our mid-major poll for 14 weeks or something like that. Unfortunately, they ran into the unstoppable or the unmovable force of NC State in the postseason last year. But, they have their whole weekend rotation back. They have a really good offense returning. And I think that, they're going to run through the Conference USA again and be able to host a regional. And anytime you can host a regional, it gives you that much better of a shot to get to Omaha. So that's a kind of an unbranded team or unbrand name team that can make a lot of noise and do something like Coastal Carolina did a few years ago. Speaking of Coastal Carolina, that year in 2016 when they came out of the Big South, nobody knew what the Big South was. You guys might have, because it's in the North Carolina area, but there's a team that's going to come out of the Big South that nobody wants to play, and it's the Campbell Camels. And
we play them next week.
Yeah, and you guys better watch out, because, wow, I was talking to some people that are close to the program, a player on the team and a couple guys that have played there in the past. And this team is supposedly, I mean, they haven't on paper, but the way that they're going to play baseball is faster than you. It's more physical than you, and it's with way more focus and energy. Like, these kids are not to quote Long Beach State's nickname, but they're dirtbags. They're going to go out there and bust at every play. And they might not lose more than 2 or 3 games in the Big South. They're going to come out well rested. They're going to know their batting order. They're going to know their pitching rotation. They're going to know their bullpen, which is a big piece in college baseball postseason, like knowing which guys you can rely on and not have to shuffle the lineup around and things. So, I mean, Campbell is going to be a very scary team, and I think they play a pretty good amount of Power 5 teams, and I expect them to have a winning record against those Power 5 teams like pretty easily.
Yeah, they. I don't know about this whole Power 5 and mid-major talking baseball.
Hey, we have a whole podcast segment, I feel like, twice a year about what's mid-major, what's Power 5 in college baseball. There's such a gray area. I don't even know. I don't even care anymore.
Yeah, Campbell's always tough. But let me tell you something, guys. Lillington in that area is a freaking dump. Holy crap. Lillington and Boys Creek, what a dump. You know, down there in Campbell with all their stupid roundabouts on their campus. What a dump.
Wow.
I've never been there.
Okay, and that was, speaking of which, that was a courtesy of Kyle from LaGrange. We don't agree with that assessment.
What's this trash talk? That's trash talk to the Camels, the soup cans there. The Campbell Camels down in Boys Creek. They're in freaking Lillington. I mean, come on. What a dump.
There we go. Wow. We like Justin Hare a lot. Ben, he's come on our show the last few years where they're giving a shameless plug for our North Carolina D1 baseball preview that we do every single year. Thank you, Bubba Rosenbaum. This year, pretty much so-handedly did it. My schedule at work has been nuts. But I tell you what, Justin Hare has been unbelievable to us personally. You look at what he's done with the program, and it's kind of like with up there, I know the ACC schools, but I would say the Campbell every year gives us fits, and it's like a rivalry.
Even when they're not as good as they have been in the last couple of years, they're always a pain in the ass.
Yes.
So this year they're really good. And they were really good last year. They gave Mississippi State all they wanted in the regionals. So I respect Campbell. I'm just talking trash about what a shithole Illington and the Boys Creek area is.
I have a trivia question for you guys, if you don't mind. I don't know the answer. I'm hoping one of you guys know it. But how many Division I baseball programs are there in the state of North Carolina? Because I just rattled 17. Off, I think 13 in 17. My head. 17?
17.
Okay.
It was 18, but North Carolina Central, the wonderful, wonderful administration had a brilliant idea. We play, Ben, they actually play, if you love the movie Bull Durham.
Yeah, I know their field that it's set up. Or maybe is it North Carolina A&T that has the weird dugouts? Maybe not. Go ahead. Sorry.
Central had a baseball program, and they just said, "Okay, we're not going to play baseball anymore." And they had one of the Durham Bulls still owns Durham Athletic Park, and if you go there now, that ballpark is incredible. I would kill to play on that field. It's unbelievable. And they just said, "Oh, we're not going to play anymore." But it was 18, and now this year it's now 17 Division I baseball schools.
Wow, and that has to be, I mean, other than California and Texas, I want to say that's more than Florida has.
Probably.
I want to say that might be the third most.
Bubba knows that. I think we are the third most.
Third most Division I baseball schools in the state. I mean, and then South Carolina too has a bunch, and Virginia has a bunch. I mean, that whole area right there, which eventually I want to move to. I want to move somewhere between South Carolina and Virginia. Whenever I'm old, retired, all that. But
come to Greenville.
Well, I've actually been considering. I've been considering Greenville, but Greenville, South Carolina. I love Greenville, South Carolina. I think it's a nice town, but that whole area it's flooded with just so many and I would say 90% of the universities and colleges Division I in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. They're just beautiful campuses. They're very, very like the towns support the colleges really well, and you don't really see that much in other states. So I've always been a huge fan of the Carolinas and the Virginia area. And there's just a lot.
I think you should move to Lillington. You can go to a lot of Campbell games.
I mean, just the name Lillington. I don't know if I want to move there. I've never been, but It's not a very inviting city name.
Hey, Ben, when are you going to at least come up to a game at Clark LeClaire or a series for the Pirates? And check this out, Ben. How many programs can say we sold over 2,000 season tickets, Ben? Over 2,000 season tickets.
That's more than – that's just the season tickets alone are more than probably 85 to 90% of college baseballs will get on an average game.
Yeah, and also our baseball banquet sold out in a handful of days, and we raised how much money, Bubba, for the program?
95,000, and then last year's 120.
Wow.
Yeah, they sold 600 seats like really fast, and we even had virtual tickets for the program. So really proud of that, and that just says how much we think of Coach Godwin, because with the super regionals, and one day we'll host a super regional, and we're so close to going to Omaha. We may not even, it's so weird, guys. We may not even host a regional and go to like what we had in 2016. We go to Virginia and have a walk-off, and then all of a sudden we're in Texas Tech twice.
Yeah, you never know how you're going to get to Omaha. Just hopefully. Ben, to sort of wrap things up, what are some series this weekend that you'll be watching?
Yeah, so we did our weekend series pick'em that we do every week, where we pick 5 series on the podcast. Everybody picks their winner. We share it on social media. People give us their winners, our fans and things. So the 5 series that we agreed on for this week. And granted, there's some really good tournaments, like preseason tournaments going out there. There's one in Myrtle Beach. There's one in the Texas Rangers field. But the 5 series, we have Nebraska at Sam Houston. Everybody kind of fell in love with that Nebraska team last year in the regionals when they went toe-to-toe with number 1 Arkansas. And it was a Nebraska team that only played in conference against Big Ten schools. So they finally branched out and played, regional, and they were really good. So people are high on Nebraska. But Sam Houston is another one of those teams like Louisiana Tech that we, year in and year out, they're in a regional. They're a very, very good mid-major program. And it's at Sam Houston. So anytime that you're a mid-major player, which, I was, and we were hosting a Virginia Tech or a Notre Dame, you get up for it a little bit more. So I think that's going to be a very back and forth series. Of course, Long Beach State is going to Mississippi State. Long Beach State's a top 25 program right now, and they beat up on Mississippi State 2 years ago in California, right before COVID. I think they might have swept them, and Mississippi State's like all of their fans on Twitter were just melting down, just saying this is the end. We'll never have a baseball program again, blah, blah, blah. But Landon Sims is starting tomorrow night, who was right up there with Kevin Kopps as one of the best pitchers in the nation. So he's finally moving from a relief role to a starting role. So that'll be a fun series to watch. Maryland and Baylor. Maryland's probably the second best team in the Big Ten on paper. And Baylor's making a lot of strides there. And so the little Big Ten, Big 12 not rivalry, but clash up for the 3-game series we're always intrigued in. This one right here cracks me up. And you guys have got to listen to the rant I do on the podcast. But UC Irvine is going to Louisiana Lafayette. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to Lafayette, Louisiana, but it is going to be an absolute culture shock for these pampered UC Irvine, West Coast, sun-kissed skin, blonde hair kids. They're going to learn words and phrases they've never heard before. They're going to smell alcohol that they've never smelled before. They're going to think they're in a third world country when they go to Lafayette, Louisiana. And that ballpark they have for the Raging Cajuns is an incredible atmosphere. It's a bucket list. I almost want to go there than the box at Alex Box Stadium in LSU. It's just something about the Raging Cajuns home ballpark that they get 2,500, 3,000 fans a night, and they're all just drunk, and they're all yelling things in very broken English. It's going to be a series of like white collar versus blue collar. And I am so – these kids might not ever go back to Louisiana ever again.
I think Kyle will be there. You'll be there, won't you, Kyle?
Are you going, Kyle?
No, I don't know what the days mean. Or I don't know. I guess he's comparing me to
right in, Kyle.
I guess he's comparing me to a Cajun. Hey, you know what? Yeah, we'll do it. Give me some jambalaya and a couple shots. We're good to go. And I'll start speaking Cajun, and
Coach,
It'll work.
Coach Ogeron.
Yeah.
Now, Ben, to your points as far as Louisiana, you're 100% correct on that. I mean, East Carolina alum and recruiting coordinator at App State in the Sun Belt. He's raved about just how they've been treated down there. Before they get on the bus, he said their players love it. As far as they'll have a huge spread. It's not like they're just. It'd be nice, if they're just providing anything for a meal. But he said they knock it out of the park, to say the least. And then we talked about East Carolina selling nearly 2,200 season tickets this year. Louisiana, I don't remember the exact number, but it was in excess of 3,000 season tickets.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you compare Louisiana Lafayette. I keep saying Louisiana Lafayette. I guess they're just Louisiana now, University of Louisiana. But very similar, and they haven't had quite the success East Carolina's had. But as far as the fan base, as far as the like facilities that they have and the players that they recruit, like they're up there with everybody else. There's no gap. It wouldn't surprise. I think it was 2016 or 2017. Louisiana hosted a super regional. They hosted a regional and then they played Ole Miss in a super regional.
That was 2014 because Cliff Godwin was coaching third base for Ole Miss, and the Rebels obviously came out of there and went to Omaha for the first time in like 50 or 60 years.
That's right.
But and then prior to that, I guess it was back. I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was back in the early. It may have actually been year 2000 on the dot. The Pirates had been down there for the regional. Louisiana advanced and then won the super regional at South Carolina and went to Omaha.
Yes, no, you're right. And that was like right whenever I first got into college baseball. I was at the age, I was 6, I guess, at the time. But my dad was a big college baseball fan. And earlier that year, Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns, they played in the Houston College Classic at Minute Maid Park. It was the first one there. And like I just remember thinking, like, wow, these guys are just men. They're lumberjacks up there, just big beards. They just all cut up and look like they swing an axe. But yeah, Louisiana is going to be another team this year to keep an eye out. I projected on the podcast that they'd sweep UC Irvine this week just because of the culture shock. But the last series that I really want to talk about, I know we're going to wrap things up. I'm trying not to be too long, but I mean, it's the granddaddy of them all. It's Oklahoma State at Vanderbilt. Last year, Vanderbilt went to Oklahoma State. Now, fun fact that I brought up on our podcast, I don't know how big of like sports gamblers you guys are, or if you guys know anything about it, but there's been sports books, MGM, Barstool Sportsbook, DraftKings Sportsbook. They're putting out these futures odds to see or to show like who's going to win the College World Series. And the 3 favorites are Texas, then Vanderbilt, then Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's the 3rd favorite, and it's plus 900, which is 9-1 odds. And that really blew my mind because you don't think of Oklahoma State as a national championship winning contender. Maybe if they got lucky on a good year, maybe Omaha, but I've never seen them in Omaha in my life. They've always been a regional, win a game in a regional, go home, or maybe make it to a super regional, go home.
Yeah, you really have to go back to the Pete Incaviglia and Robin Ventura days as far as really being there, the CWS year in, year out. And yeah, you're right. They've pretty much been just a regional participant and maybe a super regional. It seems like in the last few years or maybe several years at this point, they went to a super regional at Louisville.
That's right. That's okay. I was trying to remember who they played the super regional against, but yes, it was against Louisville. Now, I mean, I after seeing that line, and I'm a big believer because I'm a sports gambler at heart, Vegas knows 100 times more than we do. And when Vegas put these lines out showing Oklahoma State is the 3rd favorite, and they're not even ranked, I don't think, in the top 10. I think they're around 11 or 12 in D1's polls. I mean, that shows me that maybe they are a sleeping giant this year. They have Isaiah Campbell on the mound who threw a no-hitter last year. He's throwing on Fridays for him. And this matchup between Vegas's 2 and 3, number 2 and number 3 best odds to win the whole thing. I mean, what a treat we have on hand that I don't think a lot of people are really talking about. So I will be glued into that series this whole weekend.
And Ben, the final thing I have for you, we brought up that LSU job when you were talking about Louisiana. You're saying how Alex Box is obviously on your bucket list as far as places to visit, as it should be. And Jay Johnson was hired there from Arizona, had taken the Wildcats to a couple of World Series, and that's obviously a coaching search that we followed very closely because of Cliff Godwin's involvement. But just how do you think that hire will go? And it's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on as the year progresses.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Jay Johnson didn't just bring Jay Johnson. He brought Jacob Berry with him, who was the best freshman in the country last year and almost a surefire first rounder next year. I mean, and they're gonna have Dylan Cruz on the team, who's probably in the running to go 1-1 overall next year. The LSU team was my preseason favorite to win it all this year, to win a national championship. I thought they had a little bit of pulmonary magic at the end of last year, but it ran up dry against Tennessee in that super regional. But LSU, between the facilities and the training regiment they have and the player development that they have, and now they have a new young coach that these guys can rally behind. No offense to pulmonary, but there just comes an age where you get a little too old for your position, for your job. You can't be as hands-on anymore. Jay Johnson led the #1 offense in the nation. Arizona scored the most runs last year out of any team, and they didn't even make it to Omaha. So like they could have kept adding runs there. Or they did make it to, I'm sorry, they did make it to Omaha, but not like a huge playoff push. Excuse me. But I mean, I expect them to be very good defensively like they were last year. And the offense is going to be on the top of the charts for the SEC. So I love LSU this year.
And Ben, we have a comment from Josh O'Neill, a diehard Pirate. He said, Ben, before you make your decision on a move, please come experience the Williams jungle. And, you know, when you come, I know Pirate fans will roll out the purple carpet for you.
Listen, that's one of my favorite Twitter follows. And here at 11.7, we're all about just broadcasting the most exciting moments in college baseball, right? We want to build and continue to build like this momentum energy towards college baseball. And every single year, I always scroll back through our thousands and thousands of tweets and the videos that we tweet and retweet and stuff. There's always 20 plus videos of just the jungle going wild, you know, just celebrating with the fans or celebrating with the players after a walk-off or, you know, going nuts out there. The jungle, they were very kind to me when I was at Mercer, even though we swept them. No offense, guys, but very, very fun fans out there. But the one thing that I want to say about the jungle in my experience is those guys are, and I don't know how much you guys go out to left field and hang out with those guys, but they're very knowledgeable about baseball. And that makes the crap talking a lot better because it kind of cuts you a little deep versus some frat guy saying like, oh, you struck out, you suck. It's like, hey man, you struck out, your pants are too tight and these stirrups are on backwards, you idiot. You know what I mean? Like the trash talk is better from knowledgeable baseball fans. So there's just a special place in my heart for the jungle. I would love to make a trip out there, especially this year, and just go hang out with the guys because I don't know. I feel like I would fit right in.
Yeah, the @ECU Jungle Twitter account, Jared Plummer does an excellent job with that. He is one of those megaphone guys that you referenced, Brian Dilday, also Todd, and then there's been some others that's grown through the years. But and, you know, Dave Batts, ECU professor, he's actually one of the original megaphone guys. So, like you say, it's not amateur hour out there, and you know, if there are some that are, you know, making some amateur or amateurish comments, they'll certainly police it and, you know, tell them to, hey, watch what you're saying because that's not what we're about.
But you know what I'm saying, right, Bubba, as far as, because you're a baseball guy through and through.
Oh, yeah.
Like the knowledgeable fan can cut so much deeper into a player because like there are, there's some what's the self-conscious things that a baseball player has. That's why we put on so many different wristbands and different eye black and everything. It's to hide who we are as a player. And when we strike out and tell us our stirrups are on backwards and you look down and they are backwards, you're just like, what am I doing out here?
Yeah, this goes back probably about 15 years, and it's not necessarily along those lines, but I remember Pittsburgh was in town for the Keith LeClaire Classic, and they had a center fielder it was extremely windy that day. His hat kept blowing off, and I was in the right center gap and kept blowing to the warning track. And after it happened 3 or 4 times, we started telling him that we're going to make him a chin strap.
Exactly. Like, it's those little things that just kind of stick with you in your head. I love it though, man. I love a good little baseball banter. It's America's pastime for a reason. People love going out there and kicking back, relaxing, and the weather is usually, outside of February, the weather out there in Carolina is beautiful. So, no, I have to make a trip. The problem is, boys, I'm having a baby in about 3 to 4 weeks, or my wife's having a baby here in 3 to 4 weeks. So we've been a little tied down there. She's all for it. She's like, hey, if you need to make a trip, I got it. Don't worry. Like, she's very supportive. And, but of course I want to be there to make sure like my kid's healthy and everything like that. So, but hopefully I'll get off the chain and make my way up north, because there are quite a few different schools I want to go visit in that area, because I spent the first 10 minutes of this podcast talking about how many great schools there are in North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina. I want to do a little trip all the way up.
So before we let you go, I do have a final question for you. When the Pirates do make it to Omaha, will you be on the show with us? Because we have one of the best basketball players ECU's had in modern times was Othello Meadows. He's a lawyer, and his hometown is Omaha, Nebraska. And he told us the name of a sports bar that we'll have the show at. So we'd love to have you.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I'll meet you guys in Omaha. I mean, and seriously, guys, like anytime during the season, like I said, I'm having a baby, but at the same time, I work from home. I'm at my little desk here about 80% of the day. If you ever want me to hop on a podcast or anything, just let me know. You guys have earned my love and support. So I really do always appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a fun time to, shoot it up with you guys.
All right, Ben. Well, thank you so much. Good luck. And I love to have you back on. And definitely it's going to be it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint, as they say, when it comes to college baseball, but we're very excited about it. And it's going to be really entertaining to see what happens this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. Best of luck to you guys, and go Pirates.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Have a good night. I appreciate you. All right. Appreciate Ben so much, guys. Didn't know that we have run long. We normally try to stick it to an hour, but certainly, Kyle, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll see how good luck to the Pirates. We'll find out what happens this weekend. And guys, we have our hard to believe, but extra innings is going to be coming up Sunday night. We want to appreciate Next Level Training Center in Greenville, and Trent and Gaynell Brett. We appreciate them stepping up and being our title sponsor. It's going to be a lot of fun. Those watching is on the screen right now, and certainly a lot of fun. If you get a chance, go by Next Level Training Center. If you have a son or daughter playing baseball, softball, they have coaches there. The facility is second to none. It's great. My kids go there, and certainly we want you, if you don't know anything about it, if you're in the Pitt County area, you probably do. But it's a wonderful place, and I appreciate their support of the program for sure. Extra Innings starts on Sunday night. Looking forward to it, Bubba. And I know we have a lot of great content. And sorry we went long, because really proud of the Pirates winning tonight. We'll do our overtime here, maybe tomorrow, because we're running so long tonight. Didn't expect to go this long. Right, Kyle?
Yeah, if we keep going, we can just go right straight into extra innings.
There you go. No doubt. All right. We want to thank Coach Gary Overton and Ben Upton from the 11.7 podcast. Appreciate both of our guests. Kyle, man, great to be back with you. It's been forever, my friend. Look forward to playing video games with you soon. Bubba Rosenbaum, thank you so much, man, for all that you do behind the scenes. We appreciate everybody very much, and enjoy the weekend. We'll find out what happens this weekend as the Pirates taking on Bryant. You can listen to the games on 94.3 The Game, or on ESPN Plus, wherever you watch that, you can do that. Until next time, appreciate you, everybody. Good night and go Pirates.